You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Oh, yes, boys. Here we are. Contrary to popular belief, I am still alive. I did make it out of London. I am here on the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. I am Mags. You can follow me on Twitter if you want at Hot Seat Mags. We got some amazing co-hosts and an amazing guest with us today. We got Ali. We can follow at FF Dynasty Grill. Ali, mate, how are you?
I'm really, really good, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure to meet all you gentlemen, fine gentlemen at the weekend. Really had a great day on Saturday. Was a bit jealous of you, Mags, having the whole weekend there. But hopefully next year we'll get something sorted and we'll all stay down there and have a great time. But yeah, really good, thank you. Excited for tonight's show. Excited for the guest. I've got a T-shirt with the guest's name on that I've been such an honor to have him on and talk Devy. So yeah, really good. Thanks, Mags. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, full recovery. Sunday. Let's not talk about Sunday. That was a bad day for me and everyone around. But great day Friday, great day Saturday. Now we're back. We're okay. I'm glad. I'm excited to be hosting the show for the first time, and I couldn't do that like the other co-host, of course. That's Kev at Dynasty_goats. Kev, mate, good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, gents. Yeah, what a lovely weekend it was to talk some football with you boys, meet you in person. Again, Mags, and obviously to the other two blokes on this feed tonight. It was great to meet you both in the flesh for the first time. You are both real, which is good. Not been catfished or anything like that, so that was always a nice result. But what a weekend! Scottish Bowl's here. Wearing the Scottish Bowl tee, bit of Guinness. I had too many Guinness on Saturday, but cracking show in store today. I think we're going to blag it. We're hoping as guests can maybe help us through it, because it's a niche topic, but something that really ties in nicely with Dynasty.
Yeah, definitely no catfishing going on from this guy. Jordan coming on the show again. You're about 6'12", mate. How tall are you? I was shocked whenever I seen you walking in on Saturday. It was great to see you back. We got Jordan Merritt. You can follow him at JordM87. First of all, we have to know, Jordan, what height are you?
6'5". It might look like I'm 6'11" or something like that, but I am actually just 6'5". But yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you all on Saturday. It was such a good day, and it were a really good day because it was the day that Kev told me I was going to be on this podcast in a few weeks' time. But there's a certain person from the other Wildcard podcast who obviously cannot tell the difference between what week it is, and they've been recruited on. And I think blagging is the right word from Kev.
Yeah, he shall not be named.
Yeah, I'll give you one guess. I'll give you a clue. He's bald. Today we're going to be talking about some Devy, right? And Jordan, our resident expert on some Devy football. So, Jordan, you want to just give people who are like, what on earth does that even mean? Do you want to give people like a quick little intro? What is the Devy space for fantasy football, and what does it mean?
First of all, I think expert's a bit strong, but yeah, Devy is it's a quick way to put it. It's similar. It's the same as Dynasty. So obviously, if you play Dynasty, it's the same as that with an extra draft, which drafts college players. Like Devy stands for development. So instead of like just your rookie drafts, you draft college players that are still in college and they just join your Dynasty team when they come into the NFL draft and go onto a team. It's the quickest way to put it. You can go into a bit more detail, but it's extra bit of drafting and an extra bit of analysing college players before, which makes it an exciting thing to play.
Yeah, and why do you think? Like, do you think it's a natural progression then for like a Dynasty player to get into Devy as well? I think it helps, or what do you think more Dynasty players need to get involved?
Yeah, I think it's one. I think there's like a few spin-offs and stuff that, like, obviously IDP is another one on top of that. But yeah, what I think a lot of people who play fantasy obviously love a lot of it, but a lot of it is drafting. I think a lot of people love drafting, and obviously to have that extra draft a year with Devy is a nice initiative to get into Devy if you want to play. But also, I think a lot of us, I know you guys do it when it comes to like rookie season, like to dive into rookies, to like really like if that's analysing with film or analysing with stats. And it's another way to do that as well. You can do it early and stuff, and you can be doing the same with two guys that are not going to come into the draft 2 or 3 years, down the line. So I think if you like doing that, it's a great way to get into it. And also if you like drafting, it's another initiative to get into it. Like I say, it's more drafts and more chances to trade as well. You've got different trade values as well that makes it fun to do as well. Everything involved in like what we play fantasy is like in one. It just adds more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were on here last year chatting to the lads as well, and you give some targets and some fades for Devy going into the previous season we just had. And you said go on there and go and target Anthony Richardson, go and target Tank Big and said Jermaine Burton, but like those 3 guys all like seem to be pretty smash hits in the rookie drafts we've just had. So good job. The people you said to fade Spencer Rattler, and you said to fade Blake Corum. We'll get to that later. And then you said to fade Devon Aitken and Josh Downs. How are you feeling about your last year's comments 24 or not 24 months later? That's wrong. 12 months later.
Yeah, I think pretty happy with him. Obviously, Tank Bigsby, we'll see. I thought he might go a little bit higher, but he's fallen into a good position. Jermaine Burton, I was disappointed with. Like last year, he didn't do what I expected him to do at Alabama, so that were a bit of a miss. Hopefully, he stayed in college. Might see him do a little bit better with him. He's still on the Alabama team, so well, we'll see how that goes. I know a lot of people gave me stick for the Josh Downs one, but I kind of, it's nothing to do with Josh Downs. I think he's good, but he's a slot guy for me. So if I'd rather target slot guys late on in Devy drafts, and he was just going too high for my liking. I think he was like in rounds 2, 3, Devy. It was just too high for someone like him. So it was nothing. It wasn't really a knock on him. It was just where he was going. And same with Devon Aitken as well. He's another small guy and stuff. He's landed in a great position, which is great for people who did have him and stuff. So there's another running back in there, which I've totally forgot that we had him. I had him last year, so we're going to talk about him again. So, like you said, Max, we'll get to him later.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to start off with some targets you've got for this season coming up in Devy. So, even if you're not joining the Devy League, take notes anyway, because look out for these guys coming out next year, just like Richardson and these other guys from last year that Jordan talked about. So Jordan, who have you got up first? A quarterback out of Georgia, right?
Yeah, it's Kev did say I could have a quarterback from USC, Caleb Williams, but I thought it's a bit. I've talked about him too much, so I'm trying to go for a few different people. And obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, from Georgia, Carson Beck is the next guy up now. Stetson Bennett's gone into the NFL, and he's a really like a bit of a sleeper. This guy, because no one's really talking about him at the moment. Because obviously he's been sat behind Stetson Bennett for a couple of years, but he's a really solid quarterback. He's not the dual threat, like that we see some guys, like they're going into the NFL, but he's a solid pocket passer, and he can scramble, he can make the yards if need be, he can move, but it's just not his game. He's really solid, he's really good, accurate passer, he's got all levels of throws, and I really think that after this season, I think George will have another good season. I think he's going to be just like come from nowhere, like where people are like talking about him now, but I feel like he's going to be a first round pick in rookie drafts in Dynasty when it comes around. I think that's how highly I rate him and stuff as a pocket passer. Like I say, he's not going to be that guy that we want as a dual threat that's going to put up loads of points, but I still think he's going to be a solid QB2, in fantasy, after this year. And I think he will commit this year with a good season as well. But yeah, definitely no one talking about him. So this is going to be a really big hit or big miss for me, because he's like, I could fall flat on my face for this one, but I do really like him. And there's a few prospects, like out there, quarterback that are in front of him, which I think is a bit crazy to say, people like Jordan Travis and things like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, first of all, started looking at the Heisman winner betting odds for this year coming, and I was really surprised to see that a guy that could be the starting quarterback for Georgia, the champions, at 40-1. I mean, for me, that is really long odds. Something that is probably quite interesting. But yeah, certainly some big shoes to fill, stepping into Stetson Bennett's shoes, who we actually spoke about on our last show, our sleeper show. And Mags put up Stetson Bennett as a sleeper on the Rams. You got to look at the the size, 215 pounds, 6'4", real good size for NFL already. Obviously, he's entering his 4th year now at Georgia after Bennett did return in 2022 and dashed his hopes of starting last year. But has he secured that starting role? I think he probably has. They've got another quarterback on the roster, Vandergriff. What a great name that is. A lot of people are quite interested in him and touted him as having a higher ceiling than Carson Beck. But Carson Beck seems to have got the nod for this year. And then Georgia in the offseason has done really good recruiting work. And actually, recently, PFF have ranked them a top 5 receiving corps. So, I mean, he's obviously got Brock Bowers. We all know how good Brock Bowers is going to be. But he's also got Ladd McConkey. Really like Ladd McConkey. Love that name as well. Aaron Smith. There's a host of names as well they've brought over from the transfer portal as well. So, really exciting. When you look at the rankings, the Devy rankings, I was really surprised to see him right near the bottom of experts' lists, especially for quarterbacks. So for me, I think this fits in the mold of a sure riser. If he gets that starting role, if he nails it down and has a decent season, has Georgia winning again, surely that's going to rise. And if he does enter the NFL with that size, who knows where he can go.
Yeah, I think it's a massive risk reward that you're making if he plays all season, which if he gets a job, probably will be because Georgia, powerhouse team, they're going to win a ton of games. There might not be much reason to switch him out and try one of the younger guys. But yeah, if he keeps his job all season, you're going to see a rise in rankings, in his value. I think one of the main pulls, it's not his profile itself, it is more the situation that Georgia are going to be winning plenty of games, going to pretty much set him up to succeed despite the weapons. Obviously, Brock Bowers amazing. Outside of that, there's better wide receiver rooms in college football. But yeah, you just look at Stetson Bennett. He's a guy that was touted to be sort of a system guy and won 2 national championships. So he's in a great spot to succeed. I think I'll be interested to see how high he does go if he has a solid season. I don't think he'll be around a high round 1 guy. He might sneak into round 1, I would assume, but a lot will depend on how he does this season. I know in bits we've seen, he's done really well, especially last season. Such a good college QB rating. But yeah, let's just hope he's better than his name, because Carson Wentz, John Beck, 2 terrible QBs. He's got to be better than that, right?
Yeah, nice. Like I was going to say like a combination between like Carson Wentz and like a Beck's beer as well, right? It's like nobody's like the only thing I'd add to add is like you guys pretty much covered it, like that system thing with Bennett, like Bennett threw for over 4,000 yards, which is a Georgia school record, which is amazing, and he needs to go out there and do that as well because he's got the same receiving core. He's not really lost any weapons that Bennett had. The only other thing I've got to say, if you've not already, go look up how weak his Snapchat game is because it is not strong.
Nice. It's all fair points. I think Ali made a good point about his size. The NFL love that size, when he goes in. Like I say, over the years that he's been in Georgia, there's been struggles, but he's always had that quality of like there's something there. And obviously, it's hard to say in spring games because spring games are spring games, but he really looks on point with his passing. Obviously, we'll see when it's competitive games, but he really looks to have cleaned everything up, and he really could be a really good prospect, especially as a passer. And we know that, like, obviously in fantasy, you look for that like dual threat if you can, but if you're a good passer and you go to a team that is pass heavy, it's going to be beneficial. But yeah, it'd be an interesting season for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on from quarterback to running back, someone to keep an eye on at the running back position for us, Jordan, right?
Yeah, this guy is I absolutely love this guy. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. He's just brilliant. Like, he's going into his 3rd year, and he's only going to be 20 if he commits to the draft. He's going to be 20. He's 19 at the moment. He went a year early into college, so I think he was like. I can't remember how many yards he had in his 1st year, but ridiculous. And he was like 17, 18. It's that's how good and big this guy is. But bouldering through people that were like 23, 24 at 17 years age is just what you need to know. And we know what Wisconsin have done with running backs over the past. And yeah, a lot of people are down on him after last year, but he played with so many injuries. And what I loved seeing is he had so many knocks, but he'd go to the sideline with a knock and he'd just want to come back in and he'd just carry on running the ball with he'd run the ball 2 or 3 times, go off holding his ribs, come back on 2 or 3 snaps later. And it's just things like that I love to see, from a running back. And like you say, his size is ridiculous for someone at his age. He's I'm not saying he's a Derrick Henry. He's definitely not like a Derrick Henry as good, but that's what I see him doing going into the NFL at the next levels. He's just going to carry the ball constantly for a team where he's just going to be that donkey that he doesn't need a running guy next to him. I know that the NFL's going different ways with different teams where they like to have more than one running back, but he could easily do a Derrick Henry role. That's how good he is, and I'm hoping that he sweeps the injuries aside of this off season and comes back healthy, because he's going to. I say the running back class looks quite good, this year. Like if everyone commits and stuff, and he's like 4th or 5th on a lot of people's rankings. With a good season, I could see him easily climbing into definitely the top 3, maybe 1, 2, maybe not 1, because there's a guy that's number 1 that's a bit similar as well. But yeah, definitely up to number 2.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said there was spot on. I think the first thing that stood out to me looking at Allen was the age, the fact that he's going to be so young. He's going to be less than 21 when he hits the NFL turf, provided he comes out next season. So that's the main thing, that he's performing at such a high level despite the age. I think a lot of people will refer to the Derrick Henry because of his size. He's an absolute tank, isn't he? But I don't think he's quite as explosive as Derrick Henry. Look, seeing some of the game film, I think he's fast enough. Of course he is. I've seen him do like 60, 70 yard touchdowns, but Derrick Henry is just still now he amazes me how good he's been for his size and how he's still doing it. And I've got to pump him up because I took him in my Scott Fishbowl team. But yeah, I think another thing, when you see Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, people will automatically start thinking Jonathan Taylor. I think as a prospect, he's not as good as Jonathan Taylor, but thinking about Wisconsin running backs, I saw a piece where 4 former Wisconsin running backs think James White was in there, Taylor, Melvin Gordon, and I think the other one might be like Monte Ball or something. That might be incorrect, but someone like, anyway, 4 really good ex-NFL running backs. So it was all talking up, saying like he's on the right path. They all like different things in his game as well. So some were saying it's the size, some were saying it's tackle breaking, some were saying contact balance, others were saying like the lateral agility as well, like to move side to side for such a big guy was a shock. I think the only things that I see weak in his profile is long speed and receptions. There is one amazing one-handed catch he did make, so people will stick with that, and that'll be their piece to sort of fight his corner. What I see in him is someone that's a better version of A.J. Dillon, which people aren't going to like me saying A.J. Dillon, but I actually think he's still got a little bit to show in the NFL. So Braylon Allen, A.J. Dillon plus.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of really good intangibles, right? And I think you said it really well there, Kev. You're like, he's on the right path, right? This is a guy that, at least from my research, I've seen, he played safety and then was converted to play running back. And there are some little bits and pieces that, like his overall vision, I didn't think looked amazing. Pad level maybe needs a bit more work as well. But I mean, he's got such good control with his body, with his jukes and his moves, that you think you can get that sorted out pretty easily, actually, and you're still learning the position, still learning the game. And you're right, he's got this size. Even mentioning Derrick Henry in the same breath, that tells you he's got the size, he's got the speed to really be the next big thing. And you see these young guys, they improved much quicker than some of the older guys. So next season's going to be really, really interesting for him, and definitely one to keep an eye on.
I think just quickly before we move on, for running backs, the other guy that's like the top of my rankings this year is Raheem Sanders from Arkansas. Fantastic running back, same with size. I think I get what Kev's saying. Like, you want that like breakaway speed. It can be you get away for 40, 50 yards and it's like massive points. But I don't mind taking people, I think, who can run the ball so many times. And if you're constantly getting 4 to 6, 7 yards constantly on your runs, which I think Braylon Allen can do, them points still going into your score, weekly. And like if you see that in someone like say with Raheem Sanders, is similar. He's not a guy who can break away speed, but I never see him getting moved backwards, moving the power constantly. And I know NFL's a different ball game when it comes to bigger guys, but it's definitely someone I can see doing that, which is something I look for in a running back as well as a few other things as well. It depends. There's different types of running backs, and you just got to look at what can they bring to your fantasy, team in the future.
I just want to add that I'm just excited for a guy that size, 235 pounds, to have just the complete skill set that he's got. Just want to see him being given more pass catching work. I think he's just had 19 receptions in the 2 seasons so far. Let's get him in the pass catching role. Let's get him on the outside. Let's get him running at safeties and cornerbacks, because they're not going to want to tackle him when he's got a head of speed up. So, yeah, definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And one also to look out for is your next player, someone we're all pretty excited about, even though it's a slight homeward pick, right?
Yeah, I even wore the t-shirt for it. I thought, if I'm not picking Michael Penix, I've got to pick someone. And it's Roma Dunze. He's someone I've had my eyes on. Like obviously, being a Washington fan, I've seen him, but I've picked him up. I think he's my highest guy in Devy that I've got. I think I've got him nearly everywhere. He's like over the last few years as well. He was such a late round pick as well, which made it even easier. But yeah, Roma Dunze, he's for me like Marvin Harrison Jr. is in his own, league, rightfully so. But Roma Dunze is like has got the similar traits without being as good, but still really good. He's got the size. For his size, he's got the speed. He can get behind defenses. He's got great hands. He's got contested catches. Everything that Marvin Harrison has got. Like obviously, Marvin Harrison is just a better wide receiver, but that's still not a knock on what Roma Dunze can do. And obviously this last year and stuff, he's really stood out. With the new coach coming in. He's like the year before it was like a bit awful for the offense at Washington. So he's really shown what he can do this year, and it just shows when they've got 3 good wide receivers, at Washington, that they always want to try and get the ball in Roma Dunze's hands. Like he's that guy. He's been on end routes and stuff just to get in his hands, because he can do stuff after the catch as well. He's such a still an underrated guy. Even after last season's heroics for Washington. So yeah, it's weird like that now that everyone's like he's got to the year where he probably will commit into the draft, where everyone started putting eyes on him, where he's been like one of them prospects. I know Brandon at Devy to Dynasty has been on Roma Dunze for years as well and stuff. So he's even got an interview which I'll plug for Brandon with him. He hadn't managed to get him on as an interview, which is a good watch. So yeah, I could go on about this guy, but I'll let you guys speak about him now.
Yeah, he's someone like last year sort of. I didn't avidly sit down and watch every college game, because you just can't. There's too much. But I did catch the highlights of pretty much everything, especially all the big games. And Roma Dunze really stood out for someone that's just like immediately you can just see the size, the speed, all of those things that you're looking for in like an alpha, a stereotypical alpha wide receiver, right? For me, he was the second best receiver in college last year. I know or in college this year, sorry, he should be the second best receiver. We talked about Marvin Harrison. Yeah, he's on his own sort of escape. I know people talk about Odunze or they talk about Emmanuel Ibuka, but for me, I preferred Odunze. So I think he should be, all things going well, locked into the first round of the NFL draft next year if he continues on this path that he's got, unless something goes horribly wrong, which for you, Jordan, I really hope doesn't, because I hope Washington do well.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that's getting plenty of buzz. I was, before I even knew we were having this podcast this week, listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast, and they were talking about next season's rookie class coming in, and they were absolutely purring about Odunze. Both ranked him top 5 in the class. It might have even been 2 and 3. I can't remember, something like that. But looking at his build, he's also got a great head of hair when he went blonde. I don't know if he's still blonde, but it looks fantastic. Yeah. But 6'3", 200 pounds. This is my preferred wide receiver build. I love bigger bodied wide receivers. I don't care how dirty that sounds. But and especially as we just had the last draft class, which was pretty much midgets at the wide receiver position. So it's great to see some bigger guys coming in. So he is that vertical threat. And I know on the podcast they said he can eventually be a wide receiver 1 on a team in the NFL, which is exciting. He's looking at the stats. He's quarterback rating when targeted is 124.9. So really, Michael Penix has got an easy job. He's third on the Heisman betting odds right now. He's set up to succeed these two. I think it's going to be a great year for both of them, and definitely excited about Odunze.
Yeah, I know that you're hiring him, Jordan, because you seem to be sniffing around in all the Devy leagues we're in together. I know you took him in one last off season, I believe, and I'll be honest, at that stage, like I'm no Devy king, but I've not had him on my radar. But I thought that's quite interesting. Is it a homer pick, or does he know something more? It's proven that over the course of the last 12 months that obviously you know your stuff. So yeah, definitely not a homer pick in my opinion. He's a guy that's shot up draft boards. I do think sky's the limit. I think there's more to come from him. Not Marvin Harrison's sky, but a little bit below his sky. Maybe nearer the horizon. But yeah, great pick, and I think he's going to have an awesome season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jordan, you got one more wide receiver to chat about in your targets before we move on to the feeds, right?
Yeah, as just echo what Ali said. I also love a big-bodied receiver, as you can tell with this next guy. This guy's a proper sleep. I just thought I could easily have gone Malik Neighbours. It was like an easy thing to talk about, but Malik Neighbours has been talked about enough by people. So far for a little sleeper, I think he probably will commit this year. And if he does, I think he will fly up draft boards after the season. It's Oronde Godson II. He obviously, if you know, he has a famous father who used to be in the NFL. But he plays for Syracuse, which is not the biggest team in college. But like last season, obviously the Sean Tucker was gone into the NFL. They used him a lot, but this guy was just as important, if not more important, especially because obviously in the passing game, he was just the go-to guy, and he just moved the chains for Syracuse like constantly, and that from poor quarterback play from Garrett Schrader as well. He's just still managed to pick him out, and he was like a safety blanket for him. And he's, like I say, he's 6'5". He's I can't remember. I think he's 220. I might be wrong there. It's round about. He's big. Anyway, he's big. That's all you need to know. He's very big. He wasn't like highly recruited or anything, but he's not like he's not going to beat you with route run. He's just proper physical. He's like close to being a tight end. That's what a pass catching tight end. But obviously, that'll see what happens to him in the NFL. But as it stands now, he's a wide receiver, and he's just so good at his hands. One of the best I've seen in college. He just doesn't drop anything. He just gets himself them couple of yards space, and that's all he needs, because his contested catches up there with the best. And like I say, obviously we do love route runners. We love guys who create space, but sometimes if you're that big, only a couple of yards is good enough to make catches, and this is what this guy does constantly.
Yeah, I mean, talk about NFL in his blood. I looked him up, and a great stat that his dad actually caught Dan Marino's final ever touchdown pass in the NFL, which was a great stat. And looking also at his ranking for 2021, he was actually ranked outside the top 1,000 recruits, which was incredible rise to where he is right now. And yeah, you are really treating us tonight, Jordan. 6'5". Love these bigger body guys. And then as I was diving into his scouting report, there was a couple of people that both mentioned a Mike Evans comp, and you know how exciting that's going to get me right now. I love one video that was a highlight reel of him, really, and it said he's got hands like a Venus flytrap. Absolutely love that description. And when I'm not in many Devy leagues, but when I do like to try and focus on wide receivers. I think in the dynasty landscape, a lot of dynasty players are going absolutely mad for wide receivers. We've been really blessed the last 3 or 4 years with really elite wide receivers coming out. A lot of people are fading running back, so I would love to take this guy over perhaps a running back that I've never heard of. And yeah, he's not been on my radar, but certainly after tonight, he's definitely going to be.
Yeah, cracking start, by the way, about him catching Dan Marino's last pass. That's pretty incredible. It shows that his dad's had him at a good age as well, because I think, what was it? There was a guy called Monte Rager in the NFL, like heard of my name, and obviously that's Jalen Rager's dad. And you're thinking, wow, I'm old, but the fact that there's players' sons that are in the NFL now. So yeah, I think really interesting guy that he's a hybrid, like when from Devy drafts, see him marked as a tight end in some, wide receivers in others, and I guess it's up to the commish to pick what position they have for now until Sleeper decides. But yeah, just everything I read him is really, really intriguing. The fact that he's got that wide receiver background. If he goes the tight end way, he's going to be such a force. If he goes the wide receiver way, then obviously the size, the big dude. And when Ali was saying 6'5", beautiful man, I thought it was on about you, Joe.
Could easily.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add at all. You're right. Like kind of covered. Like I was really only paying attention to Sean Tucker and that offense last year, but I've got a new guy to look out for now, I suppose. So he's definitely firmly on my radar. And I want to move on now to people that should be on your radar for the wrong kind of reasons, right, Jordan?
Yeah, and I hope there's no Michigan fans watching because we're going to go Michigan heavy, and we're going to start with JJ McCarthy, quarterback, who is going quite high. You know, like especially last year, he's going quite high, and it just does nothing really that excites me there with him. Like obviously he can scramble and he makes great plays with his legs through scrambling. It's like, and he obviously designed runs. He's made some plays, but his arm, his talent's not amazing for me. He's like, what concerns me more is like really frantic when he gets the ball in his hands, you know, in the pocket, or even if he's moving out. Everything looks like, obviously you want the quarterback, and I know they're college quarterbacks, so they're still learning, but you want to see some progression where it's like a bit of calmness in the pocket, you know, can handle, you know, like looking, you know, like going through your reads. And this guy just looks like he's seen everything like 100 miles an hour, and he just stood like a rabbit in the headlights. He just doesn't know what to do with the ball, and he gets been caught out many a times by, you know, interceptions and things like that. So as it stands now, he's obviously mentioned like Carson Beck earlier, he's going above Carson Beck and people like that. People are still really high on him, and I just can't see it myself. He needs a massive season for me to get on board with him. You know, like I say, he was a high recruit, which is why a lot of people were drafting him in Devy's early. But yeah, there's a lot of concerns with his play, and all you have to do is put on the tape and sit, and you'll see that straight away.
Yeah, this would have been some nice intel before I took him in our most recent Devy draft, George. So I appreciate your timing on dropping this nugget to myself. But yeah, I do get the concerns. I think when you look at him just in a pure bucket, you see a guy that's solid at everything in my eyes, but not great at one thing. I think the flip side is, obviously, he's coming into his third season now. As a sophomore, he started and he went, I think, 13-1. So that's going to get people interested, the fact that he's a winner. And Michigan, they're going to probably win a lot of games again this upcoming season. They've got an interesting running back tandem. I'm not going to call him amazing because you've just said that you hate Michigan, but yeah, I get your point. I think the ceiling's probably not there, but I do think it's a guy that, if they have another strong season, I can see his stock rising, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's still someone to target.
Yeah, and you saying that, Jordan, this is a Michigan quarterback who's not that fast, not a great arm, not athletic, can't hold down a starting role. That sound familiar to anybody? That sounds pretty familiar. I've heard it.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, what an absolute bum of a quarterback this guy is. No, I'm only joking, Kev. But yeah, he is. I mean, he's got great size, 6'3", but he just seems really, really skinny. I'm just worried about the amount of hits that he's going to take. He seems too keen to take off. He's really frantic. Sometimes he does do some really nice moves where he does like a fake on the defender. Looks really flashy. But then other times he just gets sacked. And yeah, as you've all mentioned, he's not got the biggest arm. Does seem to always looks like he's putting so much effort into his big throws. Not sure how much of an arm he's going to have in the NFL, but again, who knows? Looking at the wide receiver room, there is a lot of turnover in the wide receiver room this offseason. Yeah, he's got all the tools, so let's just see how he develops for another year as a starter.
Yeah, and at least he's got the best running back in college to back him up, right, Jordan?
Exactly.
Jonathan Edwards. I don't think no, this is the last time we'll mention a bad Michigan player. And to be fair, he's not bad, Blake Corum. Like I mentioned, Blake Corum, running back Michigan, he's not bad. He's just, when I'm looking at running backs, and like we mentioned earlier about wide receivers, I always try and target wide receivers. But running backs, for me, I need them at least over 200 pounds for starters, you know, like, and Blake Corum is like 192 at the moment. I don't think he's going to put anything on. Normally, after year 1 or 2, like they start putting a bit of weight on. But I think if he starts putting something now, it'll affect what he has done. As I mentioned, I have Devon A-Chain last year, and it's just for similar reasons. And Blake Curum's that, you know, you've got to remember the Michigan offensive line is like always one of the best in college, so it can always make you look better than you are. And Blake Corum, when there's a hole, just like Devon A-Chain, he'll get through it. He'll burst. Great vision. Go forward, but if he gets hit, he's going backwards. He's not going forward, and this is just my personal preference. I just can't get on board with that. We're running back at the next level. You've got to like Devon A-Chain, like he's fallen into a great position as long as a certain running back doesn't go there. That's a free agent, but as it stands now, he's fallen into a great position. Now the Miami Dolphins, you know, like play, I'm going to call him McDanielson. Jesus, that would have been not good for Raiders fans. But yeah, just the way the Miami Dolphins like running backs play, you know, they open up them gaps with the, you know, in the offensive line. It's just going to suit Devon A-Chain, but we just didn't know that was going to happen before the draft. And Blake Corum needs that to go right for him at the next level, you know, when he goes in. And obviously coming off a big knee injury, I think it was ACL. It could have been the other one, but I'm pretty sure it was ACL. And so he had got to come back from that. You know, players can do it, but it's always a concern again for me. And just Blake Corum were going quite high in drafts as well, so I just fade him at the moment. You know, like, and if you can pick him up like later on, go for it. But it's just the way he's going at the moment. It's just too high for me for what he is. And I'm sure you two guys will like to say different now. So I'll sit back and let you see what you have to say.
Yeah, how dare you, Joel? Like, this guy. See, 18 touchdowns in 12 games, like 1,500 yards in 12 games. I'm actually surprised he didn't come out. I thought he was going to come out for the draft this year. Maybe if he didn't get injured, that would have changed things. But I want to stay. I want to get my degree. I want to win a national championship, and I want to be a hero for the community that I live in and feel at home in. That's the exact quote. And he says he can't wait to give back to all the charity work that he started this year, and he wants to continue it next year. It's like, that guy sounds like a guy I want to root for. And I know he's got that sort of elite offensive line, but his footwork is just beautiful to watch. I just think even if people get through, he's juking, he's ducking, he's diving. I think for me, whenever I watched last year, it was Bijan Robinson was obviously the best running back there was to watch in college. He was my number 2 guy, and that puts him at number 1 this year for me. It's close with Quishon Judkins, but I'll put Blake Corum at number 1, at least to watch. It's hard to tell what the fantasy scoring is going to be on top of it, but in terms of fun to watch, I'm going to put Blake Corum number 1.
So, just before you go, I think it's you, Kev. Just before you go, I know obviously, unfortunately, Matt stepped away, but have you replaced him with another guy who just likes small running backs? This isn't good.
He likes bad boy running backs.
Yeah, I do.
Talking of a bad boy, though, he is built like an absolute brick shithouse, is Blake Corum. And I saw a picture of him recently, and apparently he's even bigger than he was last year. At his size, it just looks quite funny. He looks like a bodybuilder rather than an NFL running back. And it's great to see how fast he is with his little legs. But yeah, I can't believe you're coming after my Blake Corum. I was absolutely gutted when he didn't declare for the NFL draft, because I've got him in that Devy league that we're in, and I was excited for him to come out this year, because apparently he would have been a day 2 pick. A lot of people touting him as a day 2 pick. I think that really hurts his stock that he's going to go back to college and he's got this unfinished business that he keeps going on about. I think he's going to be a day 3 pick. I can't see him going earlier than that now. So yeah, I'm pretty gutted for that reason. His stock is certainly hurt for sure. But yeah, I love Blake Corum. Hopefully he comes back from that injury. And yeah, he's sharing the backfield obviously. So interesting to see how that plays out with Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that knows me and these rookies that we've just seen last this previous draft, massive on Jameer Gibbs, massive on Devon A-Chain, both smaller guys. So I've not got a problem with being a small guy. I'm a small guy like myself. I mean, I'm not 5'9", 5'10" or something, we'll say. Wear some nice heels now and then, but that's another story. I think if you're a small guy, I've not got an issue. but you've got to have two things. One is to be rapid, and two is to catch passes and ensure that you're exposed from the pass game. Now, Corey does catch passes, but I would expect a bit better output from what he shows. I think he averages, 7 yards of reception, which is better than some, but I mean, you get some guys in space, they're hitting double digits nearly. So, yeah, I'd be concerned at the combination of size and elite speed, because he doesn't have either of those. Production-wise, I think you can't ignore what he has done, because he's done great. But I tend to lean more your side, John, I think, than the other two, just because he's not an A-Chain, he's not a Gibbs. So I can't put him in that same bucket.
I think another thing that will help the argument, Kev, is he's awful at pass protection as well. One of the worst. His turn.
Can we move on?
His turn to just throwing his body in front of edge defenders to hopefully just slow him down a little bit. But which is obviously a joke aside. It's another massive thing, going into the next level. You want someone to at least be a nuisance in pass protection to keep you on the field longer. This guy just ain't got it. I love you, Mags. I think you're fantastic. I think you're great, but running back one, this class is great. Have you not watched Arkansas?
I'm going to stick to running back one. It's just, you see me. Oh, you didn't see me on Friday at the live draft when I slapped Dalton Kincaid him on that about 5 runs too early. I'm a man. I'm going to stick to my principles, and we'll see where we are next year. But I like the look of him. So let's see if we can undivide the room on this next guy. Then, Jordan, who's your next running back you want to feed?
It's Will Shipley from Clemson. Another guy. This guy is just a little bit under 200 pounds, so I suppose I can't throw that at him and stuff. But yeah, he's great. As a runner, in the open space, juking, making people. He's an exciting guy, but he's just another guy who, I've seen a lot of people put this comment next to him, and it kind of makes sense. He just plays a bit soft, and it's just sometimes you want to see someone move the ball forward, through contact, and he just hasn't got any contact, he's got the balance, but it's just, he always seems to fall down, and it's a lot of the time it's backwards, and it's something that he definitely needs to improve, because there's a lot of good stuff about him as well. And he's another guy that's going quite high up. He's dropped down quite a few people's rankings, but he's still going a little bit too high for me. Like I say, he's great. He's a good pass catcher. He's really been good for Clemson over the last year, when Clemson have been quite a poor team. But I just need that physicality. Obviously, joking aside, Mags is mentioning, running back and stuff that he likes and stuff. And it's just my preference. I need physicality and obviously I love people who make people miss. But if you've got that as well as physicality, it's a massive bonus. And it's just something that I just can't wrap my head around. To draft someone that high if you haven't got that, if you're getting knocked backwards all the time, just a massive concern going to the next level for me. And that's what Will Shipley hasn't got, which is a big shame, because he's got a lot of good things going for him as well at the same time.
Yeah, you've definitely got a type, Jordan. It's a bruising running back or a big body wide receiver.
Yeah, I used to watch Marshawn Lynch out, so you know what I mean.
Very, very true. But yeah, there's digging into him earlier today. There's certainly some people questioning whether he's actually the best running back on his team, which I thought was quite interesting. But look at last season, he was definitely the focal point of the offense. The pass catching options weren't great there with Clemson last year, and he did provide 38 catches for 242 yards, which I think was great. He also converted an impressive 18.09% of his carries into gains of 10 yards or more. So it shows his explosive ability again, which is great. It comes down to me is his potential and what his ceiling's going to be. I'd love to see him again repeat what he done last year. But people have got him ranked sort of in the top 5 of this class, according to a lot of people. So I'm perhaps not quite there yet. I'd like to see a bit more. I do really like what he brings, but I'm not going crazy like a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think 5-star guy coming out, so he's going to have a lot of support, I guess, because we do know, seeing deaf people in the community, they tend to stick to the guy that spotted him in high school, that's it, no matter what. So, yeah. So it's it's one of those where I do think his value will probably be pretty decent, but that's not a reason to fade him. Yeah, there's always guys that are going to be highly valued that you don't have to touch and you don't have to go after. I think a little bit of a similar thought process to Coram, the fact I think he could do more in the pass game. But I will say that, yeah, Shipley, the only thing that's upsetting on this one as well, Jordan, is I recently traded for him in a Devy league that we're in, so thanks for giving us that intel post that happening.
I mean, there's still a chance, Kev. But it's fair. You know what I mean? You didn't draft him in round 1 or 2, did you? So you're okay.
John, I can't believe you're giving stick to the second best running back in college. No, he's like crafty, right? He seems to make the most of what he's got sometimes. It just looks to me he's like a backup at best in the NFL, right? I don't see anything too bright in his future. So I don't think you've split the room as much there, Jordan. Definitely, yeah, that's a great pick, and you've got one more for us. Who's going to be a wide receiver, right?
Yeah, just before I jump on, it just shows you how hard Devy and how great it is at the same time, because Will Shipley was such a high profile coming in from high school. You know, I think maybe definitely top 3 running backs coming in. I think he might be number 2. You know, in his passing, and I think just shows you how hard it is sometimes. You know, like where you think, oh yeah, it's number 2 running back coming in. It's definitely going to make the NFL. It's just not always the case. So just thought I'd throw that one in before we move on to the next guy. It's Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State, was at Michigan State last year. He's transferred into a team that's a lot of people are a bit of a sleeper this year, and they're expecting to have a really good year. Maybe like push towards to the playoffs, which would be outstanding because they've obviously got so many great wide receivers there. Got Jordan Travis, quarterback, who's coming off a fantastic year, and Keon Coleman's transferred there, and he's just someone that I'm just never been high on. Like when he was at Michigan State, I think he's a good college quarterback, and I just don't think he creates that much separation for like he's not as big as the guys that I've mentioned, but he shows his physicalness there. I always mention, like, I was never a massive George Pickens guy. I remember when people used to see him like push like defensive backs off the line. You know, it's like saying it's a great thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's in college. You know, I like seeing push someone like off the line when it comes to the NFL, and it's just in that same category for me where I think he's a decent college quarterback, and I think what makes me want to fade him is because I think this year he's going to have a really good year with that offense, and people are going to get so excited about him, you know, like at the next level. I just don't think he's a top end wide receiver. It could be a wide receiver 3 at the NFL best case, in my opinion. And yeah, that's the main reason why I'm fading. I think he's just going to have a really good year, and people are just going to be so on him and stuff, you know, like with Johnny Wilson and things. That Johnny Wilson's probably a better pickup in Devy. You know, he's on the same team. He's another big guy, which is helps my cause. But yeah, it's just that's a big reason for me. I just think he's just not as special as people are making out for him, and like I say, his hands are questionable as well. Especially when last year, I think that was second year and stuff at Michigan State. We didn't see much in first year, but second year really saw that he really needs to improve his hands, especially you know NFL guys just hate bad hands, and he's definitely one of them who's got someone who needs to sort that out.
Yeah, I get why he transferred because, like you said, they're a sleeper team, they're up and coming, but I think he's bottled it a bit because obviously Jaden Reed was on his former team, so he was getting nice coverages to do his thing. Now he's going to another team where there's other guys on the offense where he is the best wide receiver on that team in terms of sort of prospect as it stands, but there's other guys on there that are going to be commanding coverage, etc. So I think he bottled it a little bit. Obviously, he's a wide receiver called K. Coleman. Is he the best K. Coleman wide receiver in college football? There's another one called Kevin Coleman, so that's an interesting one. Obviously, Kevin Coleman is also the nickname for the boys. Devy analyst. You know, I'm gonna tie my flag to that K. Coleman, if anyone.
Yeah, he's one. You know, I did a quick search into. I didn't know too much about him, so I did more digging into him today. He called his time at Michigan State a 2-year sentence, which I was like, that's a bit like disrespectful to come out. You've not even played a snap for your like new team yet, and you're already talking that amount of like trash about your old team. I'm sure his teammates really didn't appreciate that, especially when it sounds like, he did get a lot of open looks and, maybe was carried a little bit by his team last year and is trying to do the same again this year. And I couldn't find any. I'm glad you brought it up, Jordan. I couldn't find any stats for how many drops he had. But even looking at his highlight tape of the catches that he had, I was like, this guy's hand's terrible. He always dropped everything as well. Like, he barely hung on. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I couldn't find, sadly, any stats about his drops, but I bet there was a lot in there.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I've always liked to see how wide receivers, running backs, when they get a transfer, it's always interesting to see if it sparks a really big year the following year. But yeah, looking at his scouting report and looking at the highlights, and it's clear just to see on video, but also every report you get to is the separation is the weakness, one of the key weaknesses. And I'm afraid, when it comes to when I'm looking at drafting a running back, wide receiver that comes into NFL, that is a big thing. Is if they can't separate in college, are they ever going to separate in the NFL? So get off the terrace, get off the Coleman.
Very nice.
Get off the coal, man.
I think it's like you said, like obviously you're looking for separation, but if it's a guy at a certain size that can separate, that's what you want to see. But if there's a big guy, like separation's like not that important. Like Drake London wasn't like he can separate, but he wasn't the massive separator in college because he just let himself do the work with how physically he was and stuff, and then we saw like he can separate a little bit, but like there is certain guys in college that like don't need the separation if they're big enough, if they're going to be big enough at the next level as well. And but like someone of his size, separation, like you mentioned, is key. Another thing that's like when scouting guys as Devy players, a lot of people put on YouTube and just watch Keon Coleman highlights 2022. Them highlights just going over the best bits. There's enough people out there that chop down film. Like I mentioned, Brandon earlier, Devy Dynasty does it, and am I going to get this wrong? Is it Dynasty Deegans and stuff that have just come out recently on YouTube? I think they chop up a lot of film where it's all plays and stuff, where it's even when there's like drops, even when it's like untagged. So they're the best things to watch as someone, not just in Devy, just like in fantasy as well, because it's just easy to put on highlights and think, oh, this guy's great, he's catching everything, but it's just, and that's Keon Coleman. Going back to it, Keon Coleman is that guy, because there's some games where he's had great games, but if you just watch a lot of his film over the year, it's like there's a lot more downs than there is ups, and people are like, look at them ups thinking, oh, I can't wait for him at Florida State. It's just going to like pick up yards for fun, with Jordan Travis, and he well might, but doesn't make him a good wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. And was it Devy in 5 minutes or something? Someone in 5, right? That's also does a really good job of showing you everything. So that brings us to the end of the Devy section, Jordan. Thank you so much for giving us some people to target and some people to feed. But we can't let you go without letting you select your fantasy wildcard selection. This is a player that you think will improve their dynasty value the most in 2023. Who you got?
I did mention before I came on air that it might have been a cop-out, but the guys have reassured me that it's fine. I've gone for John Mechie at the Texans, and obviously there's quite a few wide receivers there. A lot of people are throwing out different names, but obviously we know John Mechie missed last year due to an illness, which was unfortunate, but it was a great prospect, like coming out, like obviously not high end, but still a good wide receiver. And if you look at that wide receiver room at Houston, it needs someone to really step up this year, especially for if CJ Stroud starts, which he probably will. And it kind of made sense to me with John Mechie, like not playing in the NFL. He's kind of a rookie if you think about it, because it's going to be his first year, and it kind of like got me thinking like he could latch on to CJ Stroud, them two could create a bond, and he could be that wide receiver one there, which would definitely fly him up. Like the rankings. I know like Ali kind of looked before, and he was like wide receiver 53. On I think it was Keith Drake-Up, wasn't it?
Yeah, Keith Drake-Up. Yeah.
So if he gets that bond with Stroud. And if you look at the others, obviously there's a guy that I died, like we mentioned, I died on his hill, Nico Collins. But if you look at the rest of them there, there's no reason why he can't be that number one. And if he is, and I believe he can be, he will definitely be a lot higher than his rankings are showing now.
Yeah, I mean, I think every one of us would be, delighted to see John Mechie just kind of fly the ranks. What amazing, just like feel good story to see him and have like a good career in the NFL, right, guys?
Great.
100%. He's someone that I've rooted for his rookie season. Well, when he came out as a rookie, in the pre-rookie process, I was a big fan of John Mechie. Took him in a lot of places. I think it was like late round 2, round 3 where I was taking him. Obviously stashed him away. Really happy that he's got obviously his better health. He's back on the field 100%. Yeah, why not? Because he's got Tank Dell. There's a lot of players on there as pass catching options, but none of them are great. I think John Mechie's got the talent to beat them out eventually. So why not? And at that price, yeah, I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I love the pick, John. I've got to say that because you're absolutely massive. I don't want you to beat me up, but I think it's an ambiguous situation, first of all. It's tied to CJ Stroud, who's obviously draft capital pedigree. People are going to be in on him. He's got a chance to be something really decent in this league. So, and he's coming from a place where there's plenty of growth in his profile. So, really good shout on that. I think one thing for people to consider, if you like Jameson Williams, this is like buying Jameson Williams at the pound shop.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that brings us to the end of another amazing show. So, Jordan, just want to thank you again for coming on and chatting Devy to us. Do you just want to remind everybody, where can they find you? You got anything to plug for all the listeners?
No, thank you for having me on. It's been an enjoyable evening. Yeah, obviously follow me at Jordan87 where I post most of my stuff on Twitter. Obviously, be quite a few articles coming out at 5 Yard College for the Pac-12. I know these guys know how much I love that. And obviously at the Devy workshop, we've got a couple of videos coming out after a bit of hiatus, after a new baby in the house. So there's a few more videos coming out there. So yeah, just follow them, subscribe to them, and appreciate you having me on, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Ali, any final thoughts on the Dish show?
Yeah, it's been amazing because it's something where I personally have to throw myself in the deep end. I don't always follow Devy right throughout the season, more pick it up in the rookie process. So it's been amazing having you on, Jordan. Cheers for coming on. It's great meeting you on Saturday. Yeah, what a great guest. And I think I need to pick myself a college team because obviously you've got your team that you're passionate
Michigan.
about. Perhaps not Michigan because we might fall out and you're bigger than me. So yeah, perhaps someone else.
Yep. Kev, any last thoughts?
Yeah, just another cracking show. I mean, if people just look at some of your hits from last year, a lot of your fades are correct. Biggest one for me is Anthony Richardson, a guy that you absolutely called. You nailed it before anyone else. If you was in Devy leagues and took that advice, or if you thought, oh wow, Jordan said last year I'm going to really target him in rookie drafts, etc., you've smashed it because his value's gone through the roof. So, cracking show, cracking guest. Loved having you on. Be sure to check out all your content as well, because you're really knowledgeable guy, really nice guy as well. So, yeah, just cheers for coming on and slating all my picks that I took in, Devy.
Yes, that's why we really wanted you on, Jordan, just to get Kev. That's perfect. And thanks everybody for listening as well. Make sure that you're following us over at the Fantasy Wildcard, at Fantasy Wildcard on Twitter, and at Wildcard Dynasty as well. Make sure you look us up on YouTube at the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast Network. Hey guys, we just hit 100 subscribers the other day. Let's check. You know what?
Wow.
Let's see if we can get that up even further. All right. So guys, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.